Dr. Tillich, in talking about the validity of a system, of a church system, I gather that for you, the basic validity of a belief is that it transforms the person, it changes the person, and this is the demonstration, the validity in everything. How does one validate a church system, a theology?
Now, a church system implies a theology. Theology is a part of the church system, besides religious art, besides the cult, the rituals, the church services, the activities in the service of human beings, and so on. All this belongs to a church system. Now, it has always a conflict in itself. On the one hand, the Christian churches, for instance, claim to be creations of the divine spirit. And I would say this claim is not altogether wrong. And there are not only in the beginning, but again and again in church history, persons who were transformed by the church tradition in such a way, that they were able to bring new critical spirit into the church traditions. There were always reformers, not only in the great Protestant Reformation, but there were reformers like Augustine in the beginning of the Western development of the Christian churches. There was a man like Francis of Assisi. These people were bearers of what is usually called the Spirit. Spirit means the presence of God to the human spirit. And then beside this, there's a tradition. And this tradition, as every tradition, must be preserved, must be continued, given from one to the other. Tradition means tradere, surrendering from one generation to the other, the contents. And this demands a definite form, a doctrinal expression, an artistic expression, an architectural expression, a legal expression in the relationship of priests and laymen, or of ministers and members of the congregation, an expression in the way of dealing with people in terms of acts of love. All these forms are necessary, but these forms have the demonic trend, I would call it, to overpower the spirit. And that is the danger of all churches, and from this point of view I would say the churches are always ambiguous, they are always a paradox. In spite of the churches and through the churches at the same time, the divine spirit may work its transforming activity in individual human beings.
How important do you find the act of faith in all of this?
I would say that faith in the real sense of the word, that means the opposite of belief, is the foundation. It means being grasped by something which concerns us ultimately. That's my definition of faith. And belief is thinking that something might be true or not be true, and is on a much lower level and shouldn't be confused with faith. Last night I was asked, do you believe in Trinity? And I said, how can I believe in Trinity? Trinity is an expression of faith, and an expression which has its merits and its dismerits, as even people like Augustine and Luther said, and which has to be evaluated according to its value of expression, my ultimate concern, or the ultimate concern of the Christian congregation to which I belong. But I don't believe in Trinity. think it's a good or a bad expression, but that's something quite different. And the most evil consequence of the non-distinction between faith and belief is that faith is distorted into belief in doctrines on authority. And this, of course, contradicts all my theological thought. I don't give any human being, be it a pope or a preacher or a professor of theology, the right to tell me how my faith shall express itself, and then accept this on his authority as my belief. And I think here we are on a point where the churches have really missed to make clear the difference between the state of being grasped by the divine presence or the Spirit, this is the same in two words, and on the other hand, the many expressions of this faith which changed in all church history, and where then the church authority said, if you don't believe this, then you don't belong to the church, or you are condemned away from God, or any other statements like this, which I think have to be fought against with all spiritual power all of us have.
And how could the churches over these years, these centuries, have gotten away from the very basic process of living and feeling and thinking?
No, they could get away because of the tragic necessity of the legal educational attitude. We can prove this in so many special points that sometimes the churches knew from the doctrinal point of view that this was a very questionable thing. But then from the educational point of view, they said, but we must give it in order to educate, let's think, first the Roman pagans, then the barbaric Germanic tribes, then the masses of people who couldn't write and read. And all this was educational work. And for educational work, you need some educational authority. The bad thing is not if this is done to people who live simply and undisturbed in such a situation. Like, I often think of the Bavarian peasant who still lives a little bit like 500 years ago his ancestors were living. Now for him these problems...
Man is finite, he has to die, and he quests for the meaning of life. If there is no answer, he lives in emptiness. And when he finds this within the context of religion, there is no truth for what he believes other than the transforming power it has. Such was the way one man in the 20th century came to view his universe. This man, Tillich.